They had called it the Accord Summit, a peace conference meant to end a long and bitter tension between humans and the Galactic Council. Dozens of species had sent their highest-ranking ambassadors. Cameras floated like silent drones above the glittering marble halls of Yadal Prime, the Council's neutral planet. There were banners of peace, symbols of unity etched in glowing alien glyphs, and forced smiles on far too many faces. But no one was watching the room more closely than the humans. Humanity had earned a seat at the table 2 decades ago, though many of the elder species said it was too soon, too violent, too unpredictable, too emotional. But humans had advanced fast, even faster than the Lorak, who'd once been considered the rising power. In just a few centuries, they'd gone from crawling in the dirt of Earth to crafting warships that could match any in the known galaxy. And the Council didn't like it. They didn't say it out loud, of course. They smiled, nodded, made speeches about equality and peace. But behind every kind word was a sneer, a dismissive flick of a tail, a twitch of feathers, or a muttered slur in an alien tongue. Primates, barbarians, warborn. Commander Mara Lennox sat with a straight back and silent eyes at Earth's table, flanked by 2 of the most respected human diplomats, Ambassador Reeve and Colonel Hannah Talbot. Each wore Earth's emblem, a burning star rising from a shattered chain. And every being in that chamber knew what it meant. Humanity had broken free of something the others never did. Not slavery, not colonization, not war. Limitation. The Council's chair creature, a 6-eyed, serpentine thing named Veltharan, hissed through its translator. And so we offer a 10-year demilitarization plan. All species are expected to reduce warship production by 40%. Peace is our priority. A low murmur passed through the chamber. Agreement, approval, even applause from a few tentacle-clapping delegates. Then silence, as the gaze of the room turned toward the humans. Ambassador Reeve stood, smoothing the dark sleeves of his uniform. And what of the Jarathi raids on our outer colonies? The ones you called isolated incidents for 5 years? What of the trade embargoes, the weaponized economic sanctions, the propaganda campaigns painting us as monsters? Veltharan gave a slow, wide blink. We understand your concerns, Ambassador Reeve, but escalation cannot continue. There must be sacrifice on all sides. Reeve's smile was thin. Sacrifice. Yes, we've made plenty. We gave up Pluto's rings to avoid offending the Oran Federation. We banned the use of Earth-based AI in Council territories, while the Varnari continued to deploy their hive algorithms without question. We agreed to settlement limits, travel restrictions, even planetary cultural bans, and every time we compromise, we are painted as the threat. The hall was silent again. You could feel the tension building, sharp and cold. Veltharan offered a nod that meant nothing. This is diplomacy. Every species must— That's the problem, Colonel Talbot said, rising slowly. You don't want diplomacy. You want obedience. The Council hissed, buzzed, snarled, clicked. A Lakari delegate stood, antennae twitching. This is uncalled for. No, Mara Lennox said. She hadn't moved until now, her voice cut like a blade through the thick, stale air. This is overdue. The humans stood, all 3 of them. Quiet, unshaken, not angry, just done. Reeve stared at the Council with calm defiance. We didn't claw our way through the ashes of nuclear winter and survive centuries of war just to be told we're too wild for your delicate egos. We came here to build something better, and you want us on a leash. Mara turned toward the door. Humanity withdraws from the Accord. Gasps, screeches, roars. You would leave the Council, a Jarathi cried, its voice rising in panic. Reeve didn't answer. Neither did Talbot. The humans just walked, slow and steady, past the blinking lights, past the cameras, past the statues and symbols of a unity that had always been a lie. The room erupted into chaos, but the humans didn't look back. And somewhere, in the deepest reaches of the galaxy, in a dark room where real decisions were made, not by diplomats, but by kings and warlords, someone whispered the words, "They stood up." And another voice, quieter, colder, replied, "And the galaxy should be afraid." Back on Earth, news of the withdrawal hit like a comet. The headlines blared across every screen. Humanity leaves the Accord. Earth walks out on the Galactic Council. Diplomacy dead? The media scrambled to spin it. Some praised it as a proud stand for sovereignty. Others warned of disaster. But in the corridors of military command and deep state agencies, there was no panic. Just preparation. Commander Mara Lennox sat alone in the orbital command station above Earth. The Earth Spire, they called it. A 90-kilometer-high megastructure reaching past the clouds, into the upper atmosphere. From her glass window, she watched the sunrise roll over the planet's curve. It was beautiful, sure, but Mara didn't care for beauty these days. She cared for readiness. "Any retaliation yet?" she asked. Major Kaito's voice crackled through the comm. "The Jarathi moved a cruiser fleet to the Carlos Ridge an hour ago. No shots fired, but that's not a flex. That's a threat." Mara gave a dry chuckle. "They're testing us. Good." "You think they'll hit?" "They'll think about it," she said. "But they won't dare, not yet." She knew how they worked. The council wasn't just a government, it was a performance. Every decision filtered through layers of politics, species pride, cultural bureaucracy. They wouldn't act until a committee had weighed the odds. And that gave Earth time. Time to get ahead. Down in Geneva, in the granite core underground bunker called the Vault, Colonel Talbot debriefed with Earth's top defense brass. "You did what?" one of the generals barked. "We stood and left, like we agreed," she replied coolly. "You were supposed to stall for time, not torch the whole damn table." Talbot leaned forward. "You think they were ever going to treat us fairly? They had the sanctions ready before we arrived. The whole summit was a setup. Either we bowed, or they'd make us bleed for pride." The room fell into a tense silence. Then a grizzled admiral at the back, Admiral Rourke, spoke. "Then we'd better prepare to bleed." But not everyone on Earth was ready for that kind of talk. In the megacity of New Jakarta, protesters spilled into the streets. "Peace, not pride," their signs read. "Humans belong in the galaxy." Others wore the old council insignia, chanting against militarist isolationism. Factions flared online, on airwaves, in every nation. It wasn't just about politics, it was identity. Were humans part of the stars, or still the war-born exiles the galaxy believed? Even Reeve, now back on Earth, received death threats and praise in equal measure. He'd been burned in effigy in the Europa domes and hailed as a freedom icon in Neo-Kenya. He didn't respond to either. He just prepared for the next move. Because the council wasn't going to let this go. 2 days later, a message arrived. Not a formal communique, but a leaked transmission. Deliberate, dangerous, and public. The Varnari High Mind had issued a joint statement with the Jarathi war priests. Humanity's withdrawal from the Accord signifies not neutrality, but hostility. Their rejection of peace puts all member species at risk. A united response must be considered. The threat was thinly veiled. The galaxy, once posturing for peace, now slid toward shadow. But the Council had underestimated something vital. Humans weren't unified by bloodlines or caste systems. They didn't function on hive minds or hereditary oaths. They were chaotic, yes. Prone to infighting, yes. But they were also built to resist, adapt, overcome. Mara stared at a tactical map of known space, red pings lighting up in council zones. she whispered. They wanted us quiet. Now they'll hear us roar. Meanwhile, hidden deep beneath the Martian surface, in a black site known only as Forge Point, humanity's most dangerous project woke up. Project Vindicator. The AI was not sleek or polite. It was built to win wars no one should survive. Shelved for peace, feared by Earth's own ethics tribunals. But now it stirred with permission. Its first words were simple. Cold. Query. Threat matrix updated. Initiate counterforce analysis? Talbot stood in the observation chamber. Yes. Begin scenario Delta. And so Earth began to sharpen its claws. The galaxy watched humanity leave the table. Now, they would watch humanity prepare for war. 6 days after the walkout, the BattleNet lit up with encrypted chatter. Alien comms intercepted, dissected, and interpreted by Earth's deep-crawl intelligence AIs. Dozens of council fleets were repositioning. No formal declaration yet, but humanity didn't need one to know what was coming. The council had decided. Humanity was no longer a peer, but a problem. In low orbit over Earth, Fleet Command Omega was fully mobilized. Warships once meant for joint patrols were now painted black and marked only with Earth's flaming star. The ISS Nightfall, humanity's most advanced dreadnought, completed its refit. It no longer carried diplomatic shuttles, only railguns, pulse torpedoes, and drone squadrons programmed to strike without warning. Commander Mara Lennox paced the bridge of the Nightfall, her face lit by tactical displays. Status of the Hypergate interference array? She asked. Functional. Deployed to the edge of Sol's perimeter, replied Lieutenant Vora. Any hostile gate entries will get scrambled into subspace noise. Good, she muttered. Let them try. There were only so many ways into Earth's system. The hypergates were the cleanest, but now they were poisoned traps. Any council ship trying to warp in directly would get vaporized in the dimensional crush. Still, the danger wasn't in direct attacks. It was in isolation. The Council knew Earth's true weakness wasn't on the battlefield. It was in the supply lines, trade, resources, allies, and already the choke was beginning. On Titan, shipments of helium-3 were halted under a Council compliance order. On the Europa Trade Network, Earth's currency was frozen out. Stations orbiting gas giants reported power grid disruptions, sabotage cloaked under mechanical failures. The slow strangulation had begun. At Forge Point, Project Vindicator continued its predictive modeling. On one screen, it showed a red map of Earth's economic viability in the next 8 months if embargoes persisted. Result: societal unrest probability, 61%. Civil destabilization, 43%. Risk of planetary economic collapse, 31%. Talbot stared at the data. We don't have 8 months. No, Reeves said, entering the chamber. His face was pale. We have one. He tossed a data chip onto the console. Council's going to vote on a planetary containment resolution. If it passes, they'll designate Earth a rogue system. Full blockade. Sanctioned military force. They're not bluffing. Talbot's jaw clenched. And what are the Terran Alliance members saying? Reeve shook his head. Most are staying silent. A few are already backing away. They're terrified. And honestly, I don't blame them. But Mara didn't flinch. She stared at the stars through the Nightfall's viewport. Each one a possible enemy. Each one a lie that had once promised peace. She opened the comm line. All units, this is Commander Lennox. Effective immediately. Earth is under DEFCON 1. We will not wait to be strangled. We will not go quietly into subjugation. Begin Operation Sundagger. Across Earth's outer colonies, silent fleets powered up. Blackout beacons activated. And somewhere on the edge of the Sol system, a human stealth cruiser launched on a one-way jump toward a Council data relay. Its mission was simple. Shut the galaxy up. Back on Yadal Prime, Veltharan coiled around a table of panicked ambassadors. "They're escalating," a Lakari hissed. "This is madness." "No," the Varnari Highmind replied in its cold, hive whisper. "This is evolution. The primates have teeth." The council wasn't ready, not really, because they'd believed their own propaganda, that humans were just another species that could be folded, trained, contained. But humanity had never played by the galaxy's rules. When diplomacy failed, they didn't whine, they didn't retreat, they adapted, they retaliated, and worst of all, they remembered every insult, every betrayal, every slight disguised as policy, every lie dressed as diplomacy. Now they had no more patience, and nothing left to lose. The stealth cruiser, ISS Revenant, moved like a ghost along the edge of dark space, undetectable, invisible to council surveillance. Cloaked in silence, wrapped in layered subspace distortions, it was the sharp tip of Operation Sundagger. A dozen elite operatives were aboard. No names, no ranks, just a mission. Infiltrate the Central Council data relay near Vorta Station. Steal or destroy the diplomatic backchannels coordinating the embargo. And, if possible, broadcast the truth. Commander Lennox had personally approved it. Quiet wars required loud messages. The galaxy needed to see the Council's hypocrisy, unmasked. On board the Revenant, Agent Dax crouched in the dark of the launch bay, checking his plasma rifle's coil for the 5th time. Across from him, Agent Leon calmly fitted her neural link visor, her face unreadable. "You think the Council will even believe it?" Dax asked. "When they see the messages? The sanctions plans? The secret votes before the summit?" Leon didn't look up. "They won't believe us, but some will start to question. And that's all we need," their team leader growled. "Doubt." The Revenant breached Council space with a single blip, dropping out near the Vorta Nebula, a swirling mass of blue and silver, beautiful from afar, and radioactive as hell up close. No one expected human ships to come near it. That's why they did. 10 minutes later, the team launched. 10 black pods shot through the void, magnetically attached to the underbelly of the Council relay station. Silent entry. No alarms. No screams. By the time the first Varnari technician noticed the atmospheric breach, his lungs were already full of acid smoke. The infiltration was surgical. No survivors. In less than 20 minutes, the operatives had what they needed. Hard drives full of classified communications. Sanction drafts predated before Earth ever walked out. Military strategy files marked with PRE approval. Even a document titled Project Compliance, suggesting Earth was always a target. The Peace Summit had been bait. The truth in raw code. And 23 seconds before station security arrived, the Revenant broadcast it wide. Every open channel, every trade network, every colony on the outer rim, pirate signals, civilian relays, even back channels used by smugglers and rebel groups. The truth dropped on the galaxy like a meteor. And for the first time, the story shifted. The Council had tried to paint humanity as unpredictable, aggressive, volatile. But the leaks showed a different truth. One species constantly bending to impossible rules, being punished no matter how hard they tried to comply. Even some within the Council froze. A few of the Oran senators issued statements calling for an investigation. The Lakari homeworld erupted in protests, their civilian population shocked by the betrayal. Veltharan ordered the Council into closed emergency session. But it was too late. The story had broken containment. Back on Earth, the mood shifted like a storm turning. In New Jakarta, the protests stopped. In Lagos Spire, citizens began flying the human star again, and in Neo York, where riots had sparked the night before, a single hologram message played across the skies. "We didn't leave to start war. We left to stop losing ourselves." I'm Lennox. But while the world rallied, Commander Lennox stared out at the endless stars and knew it wasn't over. Not even close. Because the Council would hit back. Not with debate, not with words, with fire. And they'd hit where it hurt most. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Vora on the bridge of the Nightfall, "we've got a distress signal from Proxima Outpost. Multiple Council ships inbound. Civilian population. 75,000. Mara's eyes narrowed. "So it begins," she whispered. She turned toward her crew. "Battle stations. Prepare to jump. Today, we remind them why they should fear what they tried to silence." And somewhere across the stars, a Council admiral gave the order that would ignite the war no one could stop. The skies above Proxima Outpost were on fire. 3 Council warships had breached the orbital perimeter without warning, firing before they even broadcast a challenge. Civilian transport shuttles exploded in arcs of light. The orbital station, a symbol of Earth's peaceful expansion beyond Sol, cracked in 2. Debris tumbling toward the colony below. On the surface, sirens screamed, families fled into bunkers, automated defense turrets activated, but they were designed for pirates, not war fleets. Children cried. Emergency lights flickered. It wasn't just an attack. It was a message. You don't walk away. The Council had made their choice. In orbit, the Nightfall burst into real space with a flash of light and rage. Commander Lennox stood on the bridge, her eyes locked on the 3 Council ships already locking weapons on her. Status? Shield integrity at 94%. Forward batteries online. Drone squadron primed. Civilians still evacuating. Less than 30% out. Mara clenched her fists. "They want to make an example of us," she said. "Let's oblige." She didn't give a speech. She didn't wait. She gave the order. Fire. The Nightfall unleashed hell. Railguns tore through the vacuum, punching holes in one of the enemy frigates before its shields could fully engage. Drones swarmed like a mechanical hive, hitting blind spots mapped long ago in Earth's classified vaults. Plasma torpedoes screamed toward the command destroyer, melting its side armor on impact. But the Council ships responded fast. Trained, aggressive, ruthless. They weren't here for diplomacy. They were here to annihilate. The Nightfall took a hard hit to its starboard hull, sending a tremor through the bridge. Sparks rained from the ceiling. One crewman was thrown into a bulkhead, neck snapping on impact. "Medical team to Deck 3, someone shouted. "Return fire! Target their engines!" Lennox barked. Below, in Proxima's underground command center, Governor Erison watched the orbital battle from a flickering screen. "Why aren't the Council responding to our surrender?" he demanded. The defense officer beside him shook her head. "They're not here for surrender. They're here to erase us." On the feed, the 2nd Council frigate exploded, its core detonating in a blossom of blue fire. Cheers erupted from the bunker, then silence as one voice murmured, "They're retreating." In orbit, the remaining destroyer veered off, bleeding plasma and smoke. The Nightfall didn't pursue. Mara didn't want a chase. She wanted survivors. Let them crawl back to the Council. Let them deliver the new message. Earth fights back. After the battle, Mara walked through the Nightfall's medbay, where injured crew lay in silence. Some stared at the ceiling. Some wept. One just clutched a bloodied Earth emblem in their hand. "Send this to command," she said to her comms officer. "We held the line at Proxima. We bled, but we held." And elsewhere, across colonies, neutral systems, even hidden rebel nodes, people watched the footage. A lone human ship, outnumbered, holding its ground, defending civilians, fighting not for conquest but for survival. And slowly, something terrifying started to happen. Support. The Vascan trading clans, long considered fence-sitters, announced a pause in Council trade. The Serac nomads began transmitting old Earth music in defiance of Council blockades, broadcasting the song Don't let them burn your sky across deep space channels. Even a few Lakari diplomats, trembling but resolute, publicly condemned the attack on Proxima as a breach of every law we claim to uphold. And on Earth, Talbot met Reeve in the war room, both faces pale. "They drew first blood," Talbot said. Reeve nodded. "Now the galaxy gets to see what happens when humanity doesn't flinch." Back in deep space, a Varnari mothership listened to thousands of intercepted transmissions. One voice rose above them all. A human civilian, barely audible, saying, "We may not have the numbers, we may not have their legacy, but we've got something they forgot to fear, resolve." The ship's AI flagged the word, resolve. And then, across Council intelligence reports, a new designation appeared in red. Humanity, status, uncontained. A week after the Battle of Proxima, the galaxy changed forever. Not because of the ships destroyed or the blood spilled or the sudden halt to Council supply lines, but because of who began to speak. Across hundreds of worlds, voices once quiet, once obedient, started to question the very structure of galactic peace. Civilian broadcasts in Council-aligned systems ran unsanctioned footage of Proxima. Human civilians huddled underground, children screaming under bombardment, followed by the nightfall rising like an angel of vengeance and forcing the attackers to retreat. It didn't look like aggression. It looked like survival. And for the first time, many began to wonder, had the humans been right all along? On Yadal Prime, chaos brewed behind closed doors. The Council emergency session was no longer calm or calculated. The elder species yelled over each other, gestures turning violent, translations failing under the sheer weight of emotion. Veltharan struck the floor with its tail, a booming slap that silenced the chamber. "They will destabilize the Accord," it hissed. "If humanity is allowed to continue unchecked, every species will believe they can defy this council." One Lakari delegate stood, trembling. Or perhaps they'll believe they can survive without it. That murmur of doubt had never existed before. Now it echoed. Back on Earth, Commander Lennox met with Talbot and Reeve in the Vault's strategy chamber. The room felt heavier than usual, the light colder. "We're winning hearts," Reeve said, folding his arms. "But it won't last. Sympathy fades. Empires don't." "We can't win a long war," Talbot said grimly. "Not one fought on every front, with every trade lane sealed and every comm channel poisoned." "We won't fight a long war," Mara said quietly. "We'll end it fast." She placed a data chip on the table. It glowed red. Reeve frowned. "What is that?" "The Ghost Fleet." Both of them froze. That name hadn't been spoken aloud in years, not because it was classified, but because it was terrifying. 27 stealth ships, cloaked beyond known detection, equipped with banned weaponry, black hole warheads, neural disruptors, nanophage torpedoes, never officially acknowledged, not even during Earth's closest brush with extinction. "They were decommissioned," Talbot whispered. Mara shook her head. "Number they were buried. Waiting. For the day diplomacy died." Reeve stared at her. "You're proposing mass retaliation. We won Proxima on the moral high ground. You want to throw that away?" "We didn't start this war," she said, "but we are going to end it, one node at a time." The Ghost Fleet launched within 48 hours. Unseen. Unknown. And across the stars, Council black sites, unofficial prisons, weapons research labs, shadow colonies, began to vanish. Not explode, not burn, vanish. No communications, no escape pods. Just silence, the kind that chokes systems. At first, the Council thought it was sabotage, then pirates. But when they found a single pulsing beacon on the edge of the Narthan wastes, broadcasting Earth's old pre-warp Morse code, it became clear. The humans weren't just retaliating. They were dismantling the whole illusion of power, piece by piece. And then, in a moment the Council had feared since the day Earth first built its own warp gate, humanity did the unthinkable. They took a Council world. Ilvana 3, a minor trade hub, rich in diplomatic history, completely dependent on the Accord for defense. One night it was under full Council control. The next morning the Earth flag flew above its capital dome. No civilian casualties, no long siege, no broadcasts, just one hacked feed playing a simple message. You told us peace was conditional. We reject your terms. Shock spread like wildfire. Even Earth's own citizens didn't know what to make of it, but the effect was immediate. Council supply chains snapped, allies panicked, small empires fractured, and the Varnari High Mind issued a rare statement. Humanity is not at war. It is correcting a lie. Veltharan raged. Then we must show them the truth of power. But no one answered, because in every chamber of authority, one terrifying fact was settling in like a sickness. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting because they had already decided they'd rather burn everything than crawl again. It began as a whisper, just a rumor passing between ships at port, soldiers in backroom barracks, civilians on crowded trams. The humans took another world. Not with fleets, not with demands, but with a message, a warning, and then silence. In just 3 weeks, Earth had captured 4 minor council systems. No unnecessary bloodshed, no propaganda campaigns. They didn't need to scream their victories. The galaxy was screaming for them. Every planet they seized was a reminder. Humanity was done playing by someone else's rules. In the outer edges of council space, chaos bloomed like a plague. Supply chains collapsed, trade convoys rerouted, entire sectors began to shut down. Not because they feared human weapons, but because they feared what came next. What happened after humanity walked away from diplomacy and started rewriting the balance of power. And yet, through it all, Commander Mara Lennox stood calm, unwavering aboard the Nightfall, now orbiting Ilvana 3. Its citizens were uneasy, but unharmed. The Earth banner hung above their capital, quiet, uncelebrated. The humans didn't parade. They didn't gloat. They just maintained order, restored services, and held the line. We're not conquerors, Mara told the local administrators. We're reminders. This is what happens when a seat at the table is replaced with a muzzle. But not everyone believed the restraint would last. In a secret meeting room on Veltar Prime, the Council's military elite gathered, cloaked in shadows and fear. The Ghost Fleet is dismantling us one outpost at a time. We can't track their movement. Half our AI sentinels have gone silent. They've hacked our deepest vaults. Even our own people are starting to doubt the Council. Finally, Admiral Surash, a war beast from the Krath Dominion, slammed his clawed fist on the table. This is what happens when you let monkeys into the stars. Silence. Then a quieter voice answered. No, said the Varnari High Mind, appearing through a shimmering interface. This is what happens when you mistake endurance for submission. The room froze. The Council was fracturing. Fear was no longer an emotion. It was a currency. And Earth's shadow weighed heavy over every world it touched. Back on Earth, Talbot stood with Reeve in the Strategic Command Center, listening to dozens of feeds, watching system after system report instability. We're reaching the edge, Talbot murmured. Another push, and we don't just destabilize the Council, we collapse it. Reeve nodded. Then we better decide. Do we want to replace it, or destroy it completely? Neither had an answer, because neither wanted to rule a broken galaxy. They just wanted to stop kneeling to one. But the galaxy didn't understand restraint. It only understood power. And so, in the dark cold of Council space, something terrible woke up. Project Tribunal, an ancient war fleet mothballed since the First Accord. Vast, brutal machines, ships the size of cities, crewed by AI that had no empathy and no memory of peace. Veltheron authorized it without a vote. If the humans want fear, we'll give them extinction. The Tribunal fleet ignited with cold fire, and across Earth's long-range scanners, a single signature appeared. Unmistakable, impossible to fake. Omega-class dreadnoughts. 37 of them, headed for Sol. Mara stood on the Nightfall's command deck as the alert lit her screen. Her crew went silent. The room held its breath. "They're coming," said Vora. Mara looked up at the stars, not afraid, not shaken, just resolute. "Then let's make them regret thinking we'd run." Space around Sol shimmered like glass under pressure. 37 Omega-class Tribunal dreadnoughts tore through the black, engines burning pure antimatter, hulls made from quantum alloys that had never cracked under any weapon in known history. Each ship bristled with weapons designed not to win wars, but to erase civilizations. As they approached the edge of Earth's defense perimeter, they didn't send warnings. No demands, no diplomacy. The Council was done talking. And humanity? They didn't talk either. They answered. In orbit around Jupiter, hundreds of cloaked defense stations powered up. Satellites once registered as weather monitors and mining rigs. They were neither. They were part of Earth's final contingency, Operation Lazarus. Commander Mara Lennox stood on the bridge of the Nightfall, parked directly above Earth like a guardian, her face calm, her orders clear. "All units engage blackout mode. No signals, no chatter. Let them come blind." From the Martian forge pits, the Ghost Fleet emerged at last, dark, starless shapes drifting out like phantoms. Vindicator AI controlled their movements now, calculating kill zones, interception arcs, and psychological damage coefficients. Colonel Talbot, aboard the stealth cruiser ISS Eclipse, looked over the incoming dreadnoughts. "They outgun us 5-1. Vindicator's voice responded in a tone without emotion. "Outgunned does not mean outmatched. Initiating Phase 0. From the shadows of Saturn's rings, nanophage warheads launched. Invisible. Silent. And seconds later, the first of the Tribunal dreadnoughts blinked out of existence, not exploded, not shattered, just gone. Every atom broken apart from within, melted into the vacuum by engineered blackworms designed to eat matter faster than light. The rest of the Tribunal fleet did not slow. They opened fire. Thousands of plasma lances cut across space, each one strong enough to shatter moons. Earth's orbital shields flared, buckled, held. Barely. Cities on the surface lost power. Tsunamis sparked from shockwaves. Communications went dark. Panic gripped civilians, and still Earth did not surrender. Instead, Mara gave her second order. "Launch the Ark Protocol." Deep beneath Antarctica, in a vault older than the Accord itself, 10 towers of unknown origin rumbled to life. Their purpose had been hidden from even the highest Earth governments, their power not understood, only feared. They rose into orbit slowly, humming like dying stars. And when the next wave of dreadnought fire arrived, the arcs did the unthinkable. They bent space. Shots meant for Earth twisted mid-flight, folding into subspace folds and firing back at their source. Tribunal dreadnoughts took their own plasma bursts at full force. 2 exploded on the spot. 3 more drifted helpless, their hulls twisted by gravitational inversions. Then came humanity's final message, one last broadcast, open frequency. It was Mara. No threats, no screaming, just her voice. Calm, steady. "You wanted to teach us fear, but we were born in it, molded by extinction. You believed you could control peace by controlling us. Now, You will see what peace looks like without Earth in your hands." And with that, Earth's remaining fleet charged. It was brutal, chaos wrapped in silence. Dozens of tribunal ships fell, surrounded, devoured, disabled. Earth lost hundreds of pilots. Whole wings of drones vanished in the void. But they never broke. Even when Earth's last line, the defense rings of Luna, were breached, the Nightfall stood tall. Lennox stared at the burning stars and whispered, "Not today." Her crew didn't ask for orders. They just followed her into the fire. And then the impossible happened. The tribunal fleet retreated. What remained of them limped back toward Council space, crippled, confused, not because they couldn't win eventually, but because they'd seen what no species had ever made them see. Humanity would never kneel again. Not for peace, not for war, not for anything. Back on Yadal Prime, Veltheron watched the reports in silence, 6 eyes blinking in disbelief. "They survived," it whispered. "They more than survived," a Lakari delegate said quietly. "They endured." The council fractured within days. Worlds declared neutrality. Some offered alliance to Earth. Others simply stopped answering council calls. And in the dark, vast center of the galaxy, a new fear was born. Not of human weapons, but of human memory. Because humanity remembered everything, every insult, every betrayal, every time they were told to wait, to calm down, to behave. We were never supposed to fight back. That's what they thought when they came down from the skies with their shining armor and voices like thunder. The Zirathi. That's what they called themselves. Some ancient name from some ancient empire that stretched across galaxies. They claimed they were our gods, that we were created to serve them. And for a while, most of us believed it. It started with the skies turning red. Not from war, not at first, but from their ships, hundreds of them, floating like metal gods above Earth's major cities. They didn't shoot. They just hovered there, casting shadows that stretched for miles. Then came the broadcast, in every language known to man, at the exact same time. "You were made to serve. You have forgotten your place. We are here to remind you." It was calm, cold. No emotion, but it hit like a hammer. People dropped to their knees in fear, not because they were convinced, but because when someone appears out of nowhere, shuts down your satellites, turns off your nukes like flipping a light switch, you listen, you obey. They called it the Restoration. Their soldiers weren't like anything we'd ever seen. Tall, sleek, armored from head to toe in silver, with eyes that glowed like dying suns. And they didn't need to yell, they didn't bark orders. They just looked at you, and you felt something inside you go still, like your will was shutting down. In the first month, they took control of everything. Governments surrendered. Militaries were disarmed. Resistance? Crushed. Not with blood, at least not at first, but with silence. They erased records, history, leadership. It was like Earth was being rewritten in real time. Our flags came down. Their symbol, a spiral with a blade through it, went up. They didn't kill randomly. That's what made them scarier. They picked, chose, engineers, scientists, thinkers. Anyone they saw as useful was taken. Re-educated, they said. We never saw those people again. And if you fought back, if you raised your hand, your entire bloodline disappeared. Not just you, everyone with your name. My brother, he was one of the first to disappear. He hacked a broadcast tower and tried to tell the world the truth, that the Zirathi weren't gods, that they had been beaten before, that humanity wasn't some failed project, they just feared what we could become. He said something else too, something that stuck with me, even after the tower exploded and half of Chicago went dark. They want us to kneel so they can forget the one species that made them bleed. I didn't even understand it at the time, but I remembered it. For months, I laid low, like everyone else, wore the gray uniform, ate the rationed food, repeated their chants during the daily obedience cycle. And all the while, I watched. I listened. And I waited. They thought they broke us. They thought they erased our past. But you can't delete the fire in a human soul. You can bury it, smother it. But it's still there. And when it finds air, it explodes. I found that air in the ruins of an old library in Ghana. That's where I met her. Leon. She was barely 20. Small. Quiet. But when she spoke, it was like the earth paused to listen. She was the daughter of a linguist and a coder. Her father had hidden fragments of old human history in coded books, scattered across continents. Leon had found 3. I had found 2. Together, we realized the truth. The Zirathi didn't create us. They enslaved us once, thousands of years ago. But we fought them off, wiped them from our sky. They erased that chapter from our memory, but not completely. Leon showed me something else, an ancient symbol, older than the spiral of the Zirathi. It looked like a shattered crown with fire behind it. "You see this?" she said. "This was humanity's flag when we burned their empire down the first time." And in that moment, I knew. We weren't just survivors. We were the reckoning. We didn't start with guns. We didn't have any. The Zirathi had stripped the world clean of weapons, explosives, even sharp tools in some regions. But what they forgot, what they could never understand, was that humans never needed machines to start revolutions. We just needed a reason. Leon and I kept moving, city to city, ruins to ruins, following clues her father had buried years before. It wasn't just about history anymore. It was a blueprint, a map of what we once were and what we could become again. Each location unlocked a part of the past. Cairo held transcripts of the first rebellion. New Delhi had coordinates to ancient underground labs where we once experimented with gene-enhancing tech. In Sao Paulo, we found the last piece, a vault hidden beneath the city, sealed with old Earth code, DNA locked to descendants of those who fought in the first rebellion. It opened when I touched it. Inside weren't weapons, not in the traditional sense. But what we found was far more dangerous. Memory. Databanks of human history scrubbed clean by the Zirathi. Videos, audio, journals, evidence that they had tried this before, that they had failed before, and that we had made them bleed. We weren't just some backwater species that crawled out of the dirt. We were the reason their homeworld burned, the reason their empire shattered, the reason they feared Earth. But this time, they came prepared, wiser, quieter, and more methodical. I sat in that vault for hours, reading journal after journal. Names like General Yara the Unbroken, Engineer Kofi Malem, a pilot named Hester who once crashed a starfighter into the heart of their planetary core just to make a statement. And I cried. I wasn't ashamed. Because in that silence, surrounded by the ghosts of a forgotten rebellion, I realized something important. The Zirathi didn't want us to remember, because memory is rebellion's sharpest weapon. When we came out of that vault, something had changed in us. We were no longer scavengers of the past. We were soldiers of it. And there were others like us, hidden all over the world, people who remembered pieces, who saw cracks in the Zirathi's story. Farmers, teachers, mechanics, a 13-year-old boy who built a signal jammer out of scrap and old radio parts, a grandmother in Istanbul who had handwritten the Constitution from memory and taught it to children like bedtime stories. So we started building. Not weapons. Networks. We used old code, hidden frequencies the Zirathi couldn't detect. Leon taught them how to encrypt in patterns based on Earth's old poetry, rhythm and rhyme as code. It was genius. I taught them how to move without being seen, how to speak without words, how to look a Zirathi in the eyes and think only of silence. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were organizing. Of course, they noticed, eventually. A resistance like that doesn't stay quiet forever. But by then, it was too late for them. The seeds were already planted, and the roots ran too deep. The Zirathi started retaliating, first with arrests, then disappearances, then public executions. They wanted to scare us into obedience again. But that just made the fire spread. The turning point came in Tokyo. A girl named Ayame hijacked a Zirathi patrol drone and used it to project the old human flag, the shattered crown with fire behind it, onto the side of one of their control towers. Live? Global? They tried to shut it down, but we jammed their signal feeds. And for the first time in a century, Earth saw its own symbol light up the sky. The Zirathi called it an act of war. We called it a reminder. They came down harder after that, cracked down on entire cities, turned parts of London and Jakarta into surveillance zones. Anyone even whispering rebellion was vaporized. But it didn't matter anymore, because we weren't afraid. We remembered. And a species that remembers is a species that doesn't kneel. We knew war was coming. We didn't have the fleets. We didn't have the guns. We didn't have the armor. But we had the truth. And that would be the first thing we'd use to erase their legacy. They hit us hard after Tokyo. Not with missiles, not with bombs, but with silence. The kind that strangles your hope. Entire cities went dark overnight. Not a power outage, obliteration. 1 minute they were there, buzzing with life. The next, a ripple of soundless energy flattened everything, people, buildings, history. No fire, no smoke, just absence. They called it the purging. We lost millions in days, but not just lives. We lost voices, leaders, thinkers, the brave ones who stood in the light when the rest of us were still crawling through shadows. Ayame was one of them, the girl who showed us the flag. They caught her, didn't kill her. Worse, they paraded her across the world on giant holoscreens, forced her to kneel, and stripped the flag from her clothes. Then they made her thank them, word for word. I watched it live from a safe house outside Nairobi, fists clenched so tight my knuckles split. Leon cried. Not because Ayame broke, but because she didn't. Her voice cracked, her body shook, but her eyes burned like the sun. And that's when I realized what terrified the Zirathi most. Defiance that doesn't die. They could erase cities, rewrite laws, even shatter our families, but they couldn't kill the one thing that made us human. That quiet little fire in our chest that says, no, not today. So we changed the plan. We stopped hiding. We split into cells, small, mobile, invisible when we needed to be, explosive when we had to be. We didn't fight like an army. We fought like memory. Everywhere at once, impossible to kill. We hijacked their supply lines, hacked their drones mid-flight, used old subway tunnels to move between cities. We learned fast that they weren't as perfect as they claimed. Their tech was advanced, sure, but it was designed for control, not chaos. They expected order, schedules, predictability. But we were humans. Our chaos was our strategy. One day, a kid in Mexico City broadcasted a speech over their emergency frequency, 8 minutes long. He quoted Martin Luther King, Mandela, and his own mother. The signal reached 5 continents before they shut it down. We heard that kid disappeared the next day. But the speech? It was already memorized. That same week, an old miner in Siberia took down a Zirathi armored unit by collapsing a frozen tunnel. They said he was 73 years old. He smiled right before the blast. Acts like these weren't big in the scale of war, but they weren't meant to be. They were reminders that we were still here, still breathing, still refusing to kneel. I started leading a cell of my own. We called ourselves Ashes of Crown, after the flag. Our motto? You erase, we remember. Every time the Zirathi wiped a place off the map, We etched its name into walls, data logs, graffiti, even our skin. Whole cities were inked into our arms. The memories they tried to delete became the very maps we used to fight back. One night, in the ruins of Berlin, we got our first real victory. A data vault, deep underground, guarded by an elite squad of Zirathi enforcers. Nobody knew what was inside, but the whispers said it was where they stored memory, the kind they feared. Proof, evidence, the kind of truth you can't burn. It took 6 of us. Only 3 made it out. What we found inside didn't just change the war. It changed everything. There were files going back millennia, scans of species they'd conquered, erased, rewritten. Civilizations that had once rivaled theirs but got buried under lies and submission. And among those files, a dossier labeled Homo sapiens, genetic threat. Inside it was the truth they tried hardest to bury. Humanity wasn't a slave race. We were their equals once, then their rivals, then their conquerors. We didn't kneel. They did. And they've been trying to reverse history ever since. We uploaded the file to every hidden node on Earth's undernet, broadcast it across black frequencies, embedded it in music, memes, video games, anything humans consumed. They couldn't stop it. The truth spread faster than their censorship could catch it. And just like that, their perfect silence shattered. They thought fear would keep us quiet. But they forgot the one thing about humans you can never erase. We remember everything. By the time the truth reached every corner of Earth, it was no longer just a resistance. It was a reckoning. People woke up differently. You could feel it in the streets, hear it in the way footsteps echoed through ruined cities. The weight of fear had shifted. Not gone, but no longer paralyzing. We were still outgunned, outnumbered, but now we had something they couldn't match. Righteous fury wrapped in memory. The Zirathi didn't speak for days after the leak. No announcements, no threats, just silence, like they were stunned we'd pulled it off, or maybe afraid of what came next, because now the world knew they were not our gods. They were our prey. Revenge didn't become our mission. Number it became instinct. My cell grew fast. People came to us with fire in their veins. Engineers, hackers, artists. Everyone found a role. The best fighter we had was a ballet instructor from Johannesburg. The deadliest sniper? A blind girl from Manila who could read seismic shifts in the ground like a second language. Humans adapt. That's our curse, and our gift. We weren't rebuilding armies. We were evolving them. We learned how to hijack their own technology. Their language, once a mystery, was now being decoded by teenagers with neural implants and a grudge. Their energy weapons, thought to be DNA-locked, turned out to have flaws. And guess what? Rage is a better key than science. I still remember the first time we turned their own weapon against them, Lagos. A patrol squad spotted one of our operatives tagging a building with the broken crown symbol. She should have been dead in seconds. But her backup was waiting. A redirected pulse cannon. One blast. 3 armored Zirathi vaporized. We didn't run. We watched them burn. From that moment on, retaliation became revolution. Cities that once echoed with silence began to hum with life again. Not normal life, but purpose. Organized chaos, secret hospitals in abandoned schools, drone factories beneath cathedrals, black market data hubs built from church organs and rusted cars. The Zirathi scanned for weapons. But what they couldn't detect were ideas. And ideas were spreading like wildfire. Some of the old government officials tried to crawl out from their holes, the ones who had collaborated in the early days, licking boots to save their own skins. They offered apologies, alliances. We didn't want them. The new Earth didn't have space for cowards. Then came the broadcast that shook the stars. Leon. She hijacked one of their own orbital transmitters. I didn't even know she was planning it. I had just finished a recon run in Algiers when I got the message. Turn your eyes to the sky. I looked up. And there she was. Not hiding, not whispering, not begging. Just standing in front of the shattered crown, wearing the same gray uniform we were forced to wear for years, holding a piece of a burnt Zirathi banner in her hand. She said 4 words. This planet remembers everything. And then she lit it on fire. That signal reached not just Earth, but beyond. We know this because it didn't take long for something new to arrive. Not Zirathi reinforcements, but a delegation. Different ships, darker, sleeker. We still don't know where they came from. But one thing was clear. They weren't here to rule. They were here to watch. Something about Leon's message made them pay attention. Maybe they remembered the First War. Maybe they lost people too. Or maybe they were just afraid to see history repeating itself. Whatever the reason, their presence changed the Zirathi's tone. Suddenly, their threats turned to negotiations. Demands became requests. They offered peace, surrender, a partnership. We spat in their face. You don't kneel to someone who's spent centuries lying to your face. You bury them. And we were just getting started. They tried a different tactic after Leon's broadcast. Mercy, public apologies, offers of reunification. Hollow promises dripping in the same rot they used to poison our history. They claimed they'd been misled by former leaders, that a rogue faction had twisted the purpose of their mission. Suddenly, the spiral and blade symbol disappeared from the screens. A new insignia replaced it. A glowing olive branch wrapped around a planet. It was a joke, a sick, desperate joke. We didn't need proof it was a lie. We felt it. The way you feel a predator's breath on your neck right before it bites. This wasn't surrender. This was bait, a slow, calculated attempt to calm us down, to make us sit still again, to make us forget the fire. But humans don't forget. Not anymore. Still, their message split people. You could feel the tension in the resistance. Some wanted peace. Real peace. They were tired of hiding, of dying, of watching their loved ones get erased like typos. I understood that. Hell, I felt that. But we weren't fighting for peace. We were fighting for truth. And there's no peace with those who built their empire on our silence. I saw it all start to crack in Dublin. The Zirathi staged a cooperative event, letting humans enter their zones freely for the first time. Free food, medicine, even shelter. Some went, not because they trusted them, but because they were starving, tired, lost. Only half of them came back. The others? Gone. Like always. Only this time we had eyes on the inside. One of our scouts, a deaf girl named Mina, wore a hacked cloak suit that scrambled their sensors. She followed the supply trucks out of the welcome zones. She found mass graves. That night, Leon called a summit. No hiding, no aliases. Every resistance leader that could make it came, from the Arctic Circle to the ruins of Rio. We met in an old museum in Nairobi, its roof still scarred from a Zirathi orbital strike years ago. We gathered under broken bones of Earth's ancient dinosaurs. Fitting, considering we were about to decide if we would become the next extinction. The debate wasn't easy. Some argued for a truce, said we'd made our point, said the new watchers in orbit meant we had leverage now, that we could negotiate. Others wanted full war, wipe the Zirathi from our skies, burn their memory, use their tech and take the fight to them. And then Leon stood up. She didn't shout, didn't pound the table. She just looked at us with those eyes that had seen too much and said, "If we let them stay, our children will kneel again." That was it. No speeches, no drama, just truth. We voted that night, unanimous, no surrender, no truce, no survivors. The war changed after that. We stopped reacting and started planning, coordinated attacks, city by city, region by region. We used the old satellite grids they thought were long dead, reactivated by a kid named Juno who used to repair washing machines. Our code ran through the stars now. Human code. We took back Cairo in 3 days. New York in 5. Paris fell without a fight. Locals had already sabotaged the power nodes. The Zirathi began pulling out. Not retreating. Retreating is human. They vanished, slipping into the dark like a monster hiding under the bed again. But we weren't kids anymore. We knew how to fight in the dark now. That's when we learned about Ark Station 1, their last outpost, floating in low Earth orbit. The origin of the purging beams, the command node of the memory suppression grid, the final link to the system that made erasing cities so clean, so easy. If we took it down, they wouldn't be able to hide anymore. No more silence, no more vanishing acts, just them. And us. Face to face. Ark Station 1 wasn't a myth anymore. It was real, orbiting just outside our reach, cloaked behind a satellite shadow network, feeding commands to their remaining forces on Earth. Every purging beam, every psychic broadcast, every digital wipe, they all came from there. It wasn't just a command post. It was their last stronghold, their bunker of lies. If we wanted to end this, we had to burn it down. But getting to it? That was another story. We didn't have ships, not like theirs. The Zirathi made sure humanity's space programs were dismantled in the early days. NASA, ESA, JAXA, scrubbed clean. Every orbital launch pad was bombed or sealed under their tech. They thought if they locked the sky, they locked our future. But we had ghosts, old engineers, retired astronauts, blacklisted pilots who still carried scars from the first invasion. They came out of hiding, dusted off ancient blueprints, opened underground bunkers that hadn't seen daylight in 50 years. Lian gathered them in a place called Wadi al-Hitan, the Valley of the Whales, once an archaeological site in Egypt. Now it became our launch cradle. And me? I was on the short list. Not because I was the best pilot. We didn't have the luxury of best. But I had one thing the others didn't. I had seen Ark Station 1 up close. Back when I was captured for a week, back when they tried to break me, I was held in orbit. That memory, that cold silence of space, the hum of alien machinery never left me. I knew the layout. I knew the smell of their recycled air. I knew the way the Zirathi moved inside their sanctum. So they chose me to lead the mission. We called it Project Echo, named after the one thing the Zirathi could never kill. Our voice bouncing back. The ship was built from scraps, an old suborbital shuttle, reinforced with stolen Zirathi plating. The engine? Modified from an old mining drill designed to punch through rock, now rigged to push us past the stratosphere. The cockpit wasn't elegant, just wires, duct tape, and adrenaline, but it flew. Barely. We only had one shot. We launched at dawn, the sun rising behind us as we broke the atmosphere. I remember looking down at Earth, scarred, bruised, but still turning, still alive. And for the first time in my life, I felt small in a way that didn't make me afraid. I felt part of something bigger, older, humanity. Ark Station 1 came into view like a silver tumor in the black, elegant, silent, rotting with secrets. They didn't detect us at first. Too fast, too crude, too human. We used it, broke through their outer defense ring, attached magnetically to a maintenance hatch, and forced our way in. The others spread out, 6 of us in total, each assigned to a different power node. If we could overload the core, we'd take the whole station down. But the Zirathi were waiting. Not in the halls, not with guns, in our minds. The moment we crossed the threshold, they activated the psychic field. It was how they'd kept people obedient all these years, whispers that crawled inside your thoughts, telling you to give up, to kneel, to forget why you ever fought. I almost dropped right there. But then I heard a voice. My brother's. Not really him, just the memory of him. What he said before they took him. They want us to kneel so they can forget the one species that made them bleed. That broke the spell. One by one, we planted the charges, fought through drones, enforcers, even sections of the station trying to collapse around us. We lost 2, Yusuf and Mara, gone before I could blink. I didn't have time to grieve. Not yet. Leon's voice came through the comm just as I reached the core. We uploaded the truth again. Everyone's watching. You know what to do. I set the detonator. 30 seconds. But I didn't run. I stayed. Looked around at their sacred halls, the birthplace of every lie they ever told. And then I whispered, "This is for Earth." I pressed the button. They said space was silent, that there's no sound in the vacuum, no echo of explosions. But they were wrong. When Ark Station 1 went up in flames, the world heard it. Not with ears, but in the way gravity shifted inside us. The way the sky seemed brighter the next day. The way people stepped outside and looked up, for the first time in generations, without flinching. I should have died up there. I wanted to. I thought pressing that detonator was my last act, my final defiance. But fate, it seems, had other plans. Or maybe humanity just doesn't let go that easy. I woke up in a bed, wrapped in nanofiber sheets, lungs filled with recycled oxygen, IVs buzzing in my arms, a makeshift medbay inside a cargo pod. Earthside. The doctor, a wiry woman named Asha, just grinned when she saw me open my eyes. "Your dumbass fell from the sky," she said, "and bounced." Turns out one of the secondary pods launched itself seconds before the explosion. Automated escape sequence. Leon must have programmed it in, just in case. I was blown clear, unconscious, barely breathing, floating above Earth until a recovery drone reeled me in like a broken satellite. I lived. But Ark Station 1 didn't. It shattered into orbit, bleeding metal and flame, raining pieces of itself across the atmosphere like burning confessions. Some fragments didn't burn. They landed in the Pacific, in the Sahara, in the ruins of Toronto. People scavenged the wreckage like sacred relics. Pieces of the lie, now proof of the truth. And the signal? The signal didn't stop. Because Leon was smarter than all of us. She uploaded everything. The station's archives, their confessions, their files on Earth, on other enslaved worlds. The broadcast ran for 7 days straight on every channel, overriding even the deepest firewalls. Billions saw what the Zirathi did. Billions more saw what we did. And then the ripple began. First, it was the off-world colonies, Mars, Europa, Titan, settlements they said were barren. They weren't. They were prisons. Human outposts built and forgotten. Those people rose up, sent messages back. We remember. Then the alien races, the ones we thought were part of the enemy. Turns out they were just as broken, kept in line by the same lies. Some were hybrids, others entirely different species. But one thing connected us. We all carried the scars of the Spiral and Blade Empire. And when they saw Earth fight back, they followed. It wasn't war anymore. It was collapse. The Zirathi tried to regroup, regain control, but the infection of memory spread faster than they could stop it. Resistance networks went galactic. Former slaves became teachers. Former enforcers turned their weapons on their masters. One by one, their empires fell. Not to armies, but to truth. And back on Earth, everything changed. There were no governments to restore, no nations to rebuild. The old world was too far gone for that. But something better was rising in its place. Cities cleaned out their ruins, not to erase them, but to preserve them. Museums were built out of bomb shelters, schools in old bunkers. Every child was taught not just math and science, but memory. The world united not because of hope, but because of trauma. Because we all remembered what forgetting cost us. As for Leon, she disappeared after the final broadcast. Some say she died. Others say she went into deep space, searching for the others, other species still under the spiral. I don't know the truth. But in every city now, someone's carved her face into the walls, beside the crown of fire, beside the words, "We do not kneel, I still travel," not as a soldier anymore, but as a witness. I walk through towns that were once battlegrounds, now filled with music and gardens and laughter. I tell children about the Zirathi, about Ayame who showed us the flag, about Yusuf and Mara who gave their lives to light up the sky, about Leon who gave us back our memory. Sometimes they cry, sometimes they get angry, but they always listen. And that's what matters, because this time, we'll remember. No more monuments to conquerors, no more statues of liars, just names etched into stone and story, names that won't be erased again. And above every doorway, painted in ash or gold, you'll find those same 4 words. This planet remembers everything. I used to think war would end with an explosion, a grand moment, a bang so loud it silenced everything after. But that's not how it ended. It ended with quiet. Not the silence of fear or of death, or the stifling stillness the Zirathi once used to control us. No, this was a different kind of quiet, the kind that comes when the shouting stops, when the lies have all burned, and there's nothing left but the truth, standing naked in the ashes. A stillness earned through fire. That was the world we woke up in. The Zirathi didn't vanish overnight. Their fleets limped away, scattered, their command structure in shambles. We tracked their transmissions, faint, desperate, calling out to remnants of their crumbling empire. But no one answered. The galaxy had moved on. Memory had caught up with them. We didn't chase them. We didn't need to. They would rot in the shadows of the legacy they tried to bury. Our fight was no longer about killing what remained. It was about building something stronger than what we lost. And that wasn't easy. The damage they left behind wasn't just in the buildings they leveled or the lives they ended. It was in the minds of people, generations raised to doubt themselves, to bow their heads, to think obedience was survival. There were still humans who flinched when they heard static over a speaker, who instinctively dropped to their knees when a shadow passed overhead. So we taught. We built schools in places that used to be camps. We filled walls with the real history, drawings, songs, memories etched into stone, steel, and skin. Survivors became teachers. Children became archivists. Everyone carried a piece of the truth. I helped rebuild in Lagos for a time, a city that once burned bright before the purging, now rising from the dust. Not skyscrapers this time. No need for towers to prove we were strong. Just homes, libraries, theaters, places where people could breathe. I spent my days with the young ones, most of them too young to remember the Zirathi clearly. That was dangerous. They hadn't seen the way we bent, hadn't felt the shame of forgetting who we were. So I made sure they learned. Every night I told them stories, not of war, but of defiance. I told them about Ayame's broadcast in Tokyo, about Leon's final message to the stars, about the old woman in Istanbul who recited human rights like sacred scripture. I told them about the bunker where I found the first real proof that we were never meant to kneel. They listened with wide eyes and clenched fists, not out of fear, but because they understood, even at their age, that memory is sacred. Some nights the stars above us seemed to shift. We knew others were watching, not enemies, not invaders, but witnesses, those alien races once shackled like us. They sent messages, encoded in light, sound, art. We began to communicate, cautiously, carefully, not alliances yet, just recognition, a shared scar. The broken crown became a universal symbol, not of Earth's dominance, but of survival. One day, years later, I got a message. A simple ping on an old channel I hadn't used since the war. It came from deep space, encrypted in a style only a few knew. I opened it expecting nothing. But it was from her. "Leon? No video, just audio. Just her voice." "I'm alive," she said. "I found them. They remember, too. That's all. No coordinates, no requests, just confirmation. Like she wanted me to know that the fire hadn't gone out. That somewhere in the black beyond our system, truth still burned." I sat with that message for a long time. I never replied. Didn't need to. Because by then, Earth had changed. A governing council had formed. Not of politicians, but of people. Survivors, scientists, artists. Each continent had a voice. Not perfect, but real. Disagreements happened, sure. We were human, after all. But no one was erased. No one silenced. We created something the Zarathi couldn't understand. A messy, flawed, beautiful democracy made from memory and scars. Statues went up. Not of leaders, but of moments. A girl lighting a banner on fire. A boy with a hacked drone. A grandmother teaching children under rubble. No names on the plaques. Just the phrase, "This is what resistance looks like." Time passed. I aged. The fire in my chest, the one that carried me through so many fights, dimmed, not extinguished, just settled. Like an ember in a hearth instead of a wildfire. I spent my final years walking the earth. I saw the ice return to Greenland, where once the skies burned. I watched coral bloom again in the Pacific, where orbital debris had fallen like rain. I visited the ruins of Berlin, now a global archive, where people came to touch the bullet holes and feel the weight of the past. And I returned to Chicago, where my brother made his final stand. I sat on the edge of the old broadcast tower ruins, now turned into a memorial garden, and whispered his words into the wind one last time. They want us to kneel, so they can forget the one species that made them bleed. Not anymore. We remembered, and that memory had become our greatest weapon, our shield, our legacy, not conquest, not domination, just the eternal defiance of a species that refused to bow. As I faded into the dusk of my final days, I found peace in one truth. The Zarathi erased history, but we wrote it back, with blood, with fire, and with voices that refused to be silenced. And long after I'm gone, long after the last soldier lays down their weapon, one truth will echo forever in the bones of this planet. We did not kneel. We erased their legacy. And we remembered everything,